minute and 30 seconds with the rest of the world. Thank y'all so much for letting us do this.
And to what Thomas said, this telescope is truly going to change astrophysics and astronomy forever. So this is a very, very, very big deal. So Godspeed, James Webb. Good luck to NASA, ESA, CSA, and Ariane Space.
Absolutely. And folks, quick housekeeping here. When we come down to around T-minus 30 seconds, we are going to cut over to the official NASA commentary. So we are going to let y'all listen to the actual callouts from NASA. We are all going to, we're not going to be quiet, but we're going to mute our mics so you can't hear us because we'll all be squealing if this thing goes. But less than a minute now, and just expect us to be more quiet, which is difficult for us to do sometimes, and expect to get that NASA commentary coming up here.
Be on its way. T-minus 30 seconds and counting. Standing by for terminal count.
À tous de DDO, attention pour les décomptes finales. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, unité, top.
And we have engine start. And liftoff.
UAP, décollage.
Décollage, liftoff from a tropical rainforest to the edge of time itself. James Webb begins a voyage back to the birth of the universe. Punching a hole through the clouds, 20 seconds into the flight. Good pitch program reported.
Trajectoire est nominale.
Vehicle performance is nominal.
Show me on rocket cameras. Come on.
The Ariane 5 rocket continues to fly uphill in nominal fashion. The rumble of the powerful Ariane 5 now being felt here in the control center. 3D animation.
We can hear the noise and feel the vibrations here. You're right, Rob. Yeah, impressive.
13 altitude, 7 kilometers downrange, traveling about 0.6 kilometers per second.
Tous les paramètres à bord sont normaux.
The trajectory reported to be nominal by Jean-Luc Voyer, the range operations manager. You can see at the bottom of your screen, the yellow line is the trajectory plot, perfectly overlaid over the green line, which was the pre-launch trajectory.
That's going to be the... Wow.
Oh, my goodness. James Webb Space Telescope is on its way to Lagrange Point 2. Oh, my gosh. Anybody have any thoughts? How are you feeling at this moment?
Hey.
We're off to a great start. Everything is nominal at this point. You can see that trajectory is dead on the pre-launched performance prediction. So vehicle is performing nominally so far. We're coming up on booster burnout and separation as our next event. So let's take a look.
We are squinting at that green line, the little graph that's moving across at the bottom middle of the screen there. And they were talking about that showing the stages. Of course, that's an animation on the top. But we believe, based on what they said, that that is live telemetry, and it is going right down the track. So I am squinting down to 2010, watching that little X move on the line, because we want that to stay right. There's the predicted track, and then the actual track, and hopefully that thing is just straight down the middle. Everything looking great so far. Look at this.
Yep, you can see they had a successful booster separation, and first stage flight is continuing nominally. Chris, how's it going?
Well, I'm in tears. That was incredible.
Well, we have had booster separation.
I saw. I know it's a lot to go, but that was just, that was a moment to watch and to feel that vehicle lift off was incredible.
Oh, man.
Wow.
We're coming up on payload fairing separation now, and we can confirm payload fairing separation has occurred.
It has?
Yep.
Oh, yes.
So, James Webb Space Telescope is now exposed to the vacuum of space.
Oh wow.
Okay, we need to talk about that for a minute. They had to modify the payload fairing for this. I didn't want to say this ahead of time. They had to modify the payload fairing to add extra vents to get even more air out of it because Webb is so big that they were afraid of a pressure wave at payload fairing separation actually reconnecting with the telescope. So they had to do even more.
Hey, really quick,
look
we're
at
looking at an
this.
onboard view of the James Webb Telescope onboard Ariane 5.
Oh my
No.
God.
That was super rude of me, but you know something? That's a camera.
No, that's a
Wow.
camera.
Oh, and that
Yeah.
was a view. I'm sorry, that was a replay of payload fairing separation.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
Oh, no way. So we do have a camera on the rocket looking up. Not sure if that was exactly live or if that was
Yeah, it
like
looks like it was just a
Thomas had
few seconds
replay.
delayed.
It was
Yeah.
seconds delayed, yeah. So I don't know if that's like latency or what it is, but wow. 170
Pretty good
kilometers in
animation.
altitude. Almost 400 downrange now.
Traveling just about 3 kilometers per second now, coming up on that point.
Still
Again,
watching that
James
graph.
Webb well into space, but not yet at any orbital velocity. Of course, we're not really going for a parking orbit or anything. We're going straight for an ascent all the way to the Lagrange 2 point. But everything nominal so far. We're still in stage 1 flight. The next milestone will be shutdown and stage separation. We've got a little bit longer to go on that first stage burn still.
Yeah, the first stage burns for about 8.5 minutes per the timeline, yeah. And then,
Which
man,
is
that
longer
upper
than some
stage
rockets
has a-
take to get to orbit, period.
I know, right? And then, man, but then that upper stage takes over right away and will burn from 8.5 minutes to 25 minutes after liftoff.
Wow.
It is an incredibly long burn of that second stage. And it is the ECSD is the upper stage. The evolved cryogenic stage D is the one making the flight today of the upper stage.
Excellent. I don't want to read too much into the illustration here, but it almost looked like we could see the booster sort of pitch up there after the sides separated, and that sort of works towards this as they try to get a little bit of fighting against gravity there, and they have this longer burn on the stage, and then that is I'm going to say ridiculously long burn. Rocket scientists will be like, no, that's the burn that's needed. It's not ridiculous. That's just what we need. But everything's still looking great straight down the middle of that green line there.
You see the trajectory flying east from South America. It is more or less flying due east. That is the lowest energy required trajectory to get out to the Lagrange point. It's effectively an escape trajectory.
Looks like we were looking at what ground stations there. I think we had a couple ground stations on the map.
Yep. So unlike a lot of American rockets, which communicate up to satellite networks during liftoff, the Ariane 5 communicates with a series of ground stations across the Atlantic and in Africa. Perfect trajectory. Nice. Perfect trajectory. Good.
Wow.
Everything nominal at T plus 7 minutes. Again, about a minute and a half to go on this first stage burn. And then that'll be followed by a nice long upper stage burn to get James Webb on its trajectory. But everything nominal so far. You'll actually start to see the vehicle is starting to flatten out. It's mostly about achieving that horizontal velocity now. So the altitude will actually start to slightly decrease a little bit because the rocket is mostly focusing on just going really fast sideways. You can kind of see the trajectory flattening out and even dipping down a little bit. That's as expected. That green line is the expected trajectory and the yellow is the actual trajectory that the rocket has followed. And everything that's matching so far.
Over 1,000 kilometers downrange now from the launch site. Almost 5.5 kilometers per second. Go ahead, Chris.
I'm just very interested because gosh, there's been so much tension and everything building to this moment. I didn't know how it was going to release for me.
Yeah.
I am just in tears watching this, not because I'm not because I don't understand what still has to come, but this is just incredible. This is my emotional release from all of this. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I can only imagine what the engineers that have worked on this for so long are feeling right now.
And what's insane is that this is just the beginning. We're about to get so much from this mission.
Yes.
Yeah, the stressful part is still to come.
Yep.
All right, coming up on stage 1 shutdown and separation here shortly. You can see it marked on the trajectory near the bottom there. This is the last major staging event prior to payload separation. There is stage 1 shutdown. Stage
Vulcan did its job.
separation. And stage 2 ignition. The upper stage of Ariane 5 has ignited, and we're into the final burn of James Webb ascent.
Go, baby, go.
There's a little pitch adjustment there, right?
Yep.
Right after ignition.
As stage 2 guidance starts to converge. Yep, we saw that.
So this is the long burn. This burn will last continuously until about T plus 25 minutes on the clock on the upper right-hand side of your screen. This is a very normal. I said normal.
Normal.
Yay! Okay.
Stream's complete.
This is a very normal process. This is about how long for every single mission that it does. The only difference is Webb is light enough that instead of shooting the vehicle into a geostationary transfer orbit, it's shooting it onto the 30-day transfer orbit to the L2 Lagrange point. And that loss of altitude, if you are just joining us, that loss of altitude is expected. The upper stage is not a very powerful in terms of thrust, but is a very powerful in terms of efficiency stage. And the way you do these types of ascents with those stages is the first stage will throw you up way higher than you actually need to be.
Yep.
You'll then actually use gravity to your advantage to help you gain some acceleration, and then eventually that altitude will begin to climb again. So this is very nominal. Don't panic that you see it going down. This is very nominal for how the Ariane 5 flies.
Yep.
And of
They
course,
bought
we've heard
themselves-
nominal trajectory callouts across the board here today.
Yep, they bought themselves some time there. They got a little bit more altitude, and that gave them time to accelerate onto the velocity they need to continue on to the L2 point. So that is a normal thing. Now we're trading that altitude for some time as they continue their acceleration.
I've done that in Kerbal.
Exactly. Exactly.
It's usually on accident.
Yes.
I went up a little too high with my altitude, and I'm like, I think I can angle back down and gain a little speed.
Sometimes you have a more efficient upper stage that has a little bit lower thrust to weight ratio, and so you try to gain yourself that time. You sort of loft up a little bit, and you can try to counteract gravity a little bit by changing the way you're pointing your engine exactly. But that's exactly what they're doing here.
And
They just
another
bought time.
another one of the interesting things that maybe some of our newer viewers may not know about is this launch pad is pretty close to the equator. So, Thomas, you want to tell them why, like, what kind of advantages you get from launching from so close to the equator?
Yeah, basically, the Earth is spinning, and it is spinning faster at the equator than it is closer to the poles. And so, if you happen to launch from the equator into an orbit that is going eastward, such as an escape trajectory like this, or a near escape trajectory, well, it is an escape trajectory. My apologies, because it's the Sun-Earth point. Anyway, when you need an orbit that requires as much energy as possible, such as these deep space missions, you want to take advantage of that Earth spin. You start with some extra velocity, basically. And this is why French Guiana was selected as the launch site for Europe's space program. Obviously, you can't really launch east from Europe because, well, there's other people to the east of Europe. So you want to launch out over the ocean or out over some uninhabited desert if you're in Russia or something like that. So French Guiana was selected not just for the ocean nearby, but also the fact that it is nice and close to the equator. That is also why Florida was selected by the primary United States launch site for those orbits, because it is about as close as you can get from the continental United States. And but it differs from polar launches when you actually want to be closer to the pole, because then you have to remove less energy to get into your polar orbits. So it depends on the mission, but for these missions going to deep space, launching from near the equator, basically you start with extra speed, which makes it easier for the rocket to complete the mission.
There you go.
And I think you just saw in that little animation that it has passed out of range of the Natal tracking station, and I didn't quite get which one that was. That it's now communicating with Ascension. It's
Yes.
communicating with the Ascension tracking station right now on Ascension Island. So moving across the ground track there and across the communication network as it moves across the Atlantic toward Africa. And you can see it's going to start increasing altitude here again very shortly.
And then it's going to pretty much permanently increase altitude all the way to the L2 point.
We had a little bit of a mascot on the screen there for a minute.
I saw that. Yeah.
What was that? What is
So
the
again-
final altitude? Does anybody know off the top of their head what is the altitude of that Lagrange point where it's going? Like how far?
1.5 million kilometers.
Yeah,
There you go.
1.5 million. Yeah.
I think that is a moment of just everyone on that team will take a moment to just go, oh,
Yeah.
it worked. It did it. We got through, everything we poured our hearts and souls into worked.
Yeah.
And it's a relay race, right? Launch day is the big exciting thing, but remember everything that had to go to get to launch day. And then we've got these 33 minutes where it's launching, and then we've got to get out to spacecraft separation. And then once it separates, an entire other team starts taking over the next steps, all the unfoldings and deployments and activations and cooling down and everything that has to happen. It's not like you get there and James Webb hops off the top of the rocket and it's like, great, we're all right, let's start the science. There's still months of tasks to do before it comes fully online.
So you called it a relay, and this reminded me that one of the reporters I met down here, him and I were talking about it earlier this week, and I described it to him as a relay race where you're passing the baton off to yourself. And,
Nice.
and he thought that was great and said, you should say that on stream. And I totally forgot until you said relay to us. But
Well, there you go. Hey, happy to help. I say a lot of things.
Yeah.
Coming up, guys, we're coming up on Stage 2 shutdown, by the way. This is, again, the end of the Stage 2 burn coming up here shortly.
Oh my
Yeah.
goodness.
Oh,
And there it
what-
is, Stage 2 shutdown.
So coming up next, Thomas, is,
Separation of
it's gonna
James Webb.
separate. Oh my
Yeah.
God.
At about
It's going to separate.
That's crazy. So it now has about enough energy to make it to its final destination. Like Chris was saying, it's going to perform a couple burns on its own, but for the most part, it has the energy that it needs, and it's still so close to Earth. That's I guess the power of the Ariane 5.
But you can take a look at that altitude is just climbing rapidly, even though the engines are not firing right now. This is it coasting upward with all that momentum the engine just gave it. And
Crazy.
you'll see the velocity is decreasing because obviously it's climbing in altitude, so gravity is pulling it back down and decelerating it. Of course, it's got enough speed that it will get all the way to the Lagrange point, but it's falling back down to Earth or anything. But that altitude is climbing, and that you're trading the kinetic energy of velocity for potential energy in the form of altitude.
It's just like going outside and throwing a ball into the air, except the the Ariane 5 is a lot better at throwing a ball into space than you are. So
And you can
throw the
actually
ball up.
assume no air resistance when you do these calculations.
Exactly. There you go. So it is now. It's slowing down. We know that it's going to do that because just like you throw a ball up into the air, it goes up and it starts to slow down and then it stops and comes back down again. But in this case, it's not going to come back down again. It's going to go up to that point where the gravities are balanced just right, and it's going to give a couple little puffs from its thrusters. Hope that's not underselling the work of the thrusters there. But and it'll go up there and hang out at the L2 point.
I think I'm holding my breath again.
Yes, yeah, we're getting close to deploy right
Yeah.
here.
We may be out of range of those ground stations that brought us that forward-facing camera where we could see James Webb before. Not sure if they're going to cut back to that or...
It should be within range of the Malindi tracking station off Kenya.
Yeah. Let's see if we get that live video here.
That's what I'm hoping for.
And it
And
may
if
come
it's
a
not,
few seconds
the
later.
previous clip was like a few seconds delayed too. And there it is. Spacecraft separation confirmed. The James Webb Space Telescope is free flying in space.
Oh my gosh. They did.
Look at Mission Control.
Oh, Ariane 5 did
We do have confirmation of observatory
separation.
separation. The James Webb Space Telescope, amidst applause here in the Mission Control Center, now taking its first steps in pursuit of
in space on its way to the L2 point. Of course, we will stay here waiting for that confirmation of solar panel deployment, which is the first critical deployment of the mission. Oh, here we go. Here we go.
Ah, this is onboard camera, a replay from the Ariane 5 upper stage.
I feel you, gray artifacts. I know how it goes. Look at that!
And there, look at that.
Wow.
Oh, look at that. There goes Webb.
That is the southbound end
Oh,
of a northbound space telescope, y'all. Look at that.
I can't believe it. Wow.
look at that.
Oh, with the Earth? Oh,
Oh man.
wow.
Wow. It just to anyone who is watching our stream right now who worked on this project, no matter what you did on this project, I hope there is at least some sense of relief that part one is done. I know there's a lot left to do. I know the real business end of this begins now. But I hope everyone does have a smile on their face right now, knowing that Webb is in space and on its way to its location.
Yep.
Absolutely. I know I do.
Yeah. Oh gosh. Yeah.
So we do
Now-
get one more kind of risk retiring moment here as we're coming up on
Look,
solar array deployment. And there it is,
Yes!
onboard 2, solar array deployment
Yes!
confirmed.
I was gonna say I hope it stays in the shot because it's soon afterwards that the solar array was gonna deploy, and the upper stage camera caught the solar array deployment there. And look at the sun hitting it.
Look at that.
343 unfolds to go.
Well, look at this shot, y'all. Look at the
Agent
sun.
with the comment of the stream. Look at that.
Wow.
That is, of course, the first very critical thing. The thing almost every spacecraft does upon separation is they immediately pop open those solar panels to
Yep.
get power positive, because Webb has been on battery power since a few minutes prior to liftoff. So getting that vehicle power positive is always the first step once you reach orbit, or space in this case, since Webb is actually not in orbit right now.
I mean, technically, it's orbiting the sun along with Earth.
Ah,
and
true.
Things.
Yes.
You could argue it.
Well, it's always in orbit of something. Let's put it that way, right?
Look at this. I wonder if this is like a status of the telescope sort of monitor that we're looking at there. I mean,
Oh,
there's
yes, so
mirrors.
Yep.
This would be the Space Telescope Institute, the MOC.
Yeah.
Well, I see green on one board, so that's helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah. Don't try to read into this too much.
Like
Yeah,
squinting down. Is that in like?
Might not even be in English. Good point. Well, actually, that's NASA
Yeah.
Goddard. That's probably in English, but
Yeah. Wow, they have a lot of Michael setups there. Again, folks, T plus 31 minutes after the launch of the James Webb Space Telescope, all the way up, not just through spacecraft separation from the upper stage of the Ariane 5 rocket there, but also we saw that solar panel deploy, which is a critical step in the mission, like Thomas said. And this is the guy in the Hawaiian shirt looks happy.
I love that shirt.
Yeah.
Oh man. So did they deploy the solar panels early, or is it just is the 33-minute more like that's when solar deploy will be
that might be
complete?
when it like fully latches or something like that. I was looking at a NASA timeline, but basically there's not. It's an approximation of T plus 33 minutes. Obviously, it doesn't happen instantly. So clearly, solar array deployment has happened though. So that's what really matters.
Oh,
look at
showing
this.
key family members. And,
Wow.
Oh man, this is just nuts.
Can you imagine the feeling of relief? Like everybody in the launch control room here, the launch center, just
Massive.
They're like, I'm going home. I gotta take a nap.
Well, just I mean, to Ariane Space. Let's just take a moment to Ariane Space. What
Yeah.
an incredible accomplishment for them today. Their part of Ariane Space's part of this is done.
Yeah.
Now it's the handoff to NASA, the Canadian Space Agency, and ESA. But to Ariane Space, massive congratulations on yet another successful flight of the Ariane 5.
Yep. So congratulations all around there in mission control. And at some point we might get my favorite view here, but this is more important right now, I think.
I'm working on it, Doss. I'm working on it.
Thank you, Chris. I mean, heck, we may have to upgrade my favorite view there because for a minute we saw a view of the upper stage with no spacecraft on it.
Oh yeah,
There you go.
Yes.
we're gonna need a bigger camera.
Yeah, right.
Oh man,
Oh,
this is great. I mean, yeah, because I'm sure that I don't know. Maybe there's some housekeeping they still have to do, but I mean, their job is done. They get to take a load off, call their family, wave at the camera.
Yeah. Yeah, and for many others, it is just beginning. I said it in the run up to the launch.